The deep moan rumbled through the underground chamber, sending a chill through the air. The chains around the bell trembled, rattling against the cold stone floor. Jonas took a step back, his face set with grim certainty. "It's waking up." Fred clenched his fists. "What is?" Before Jonas could answer, the temperature in the room plummeted, and an unnatural wind howled through the lighthouse foundation, though there were no openings, no windows, no doors to the outside. Daphne hugged her arm. "This wind, it's coming from nowhere." Velma's eyes darted to the chains wrapped around the massive bell. "Something is reacting to the ringing." Shaggy let out a nervous chuckle, his voice shaking. "Hey, maybe it's just, the metal expanding from the cold." "Right." Scooby shook his head rapidly. "Raggy, it's not the cold." A low growl echoed from the shadows. Fred swung his lantern toward the darkened edge of the chamber. The carved stone faces along the walls looked twisted in horror, frozen in expressions of agony. Then, a massive black figure shifted in the darkness. A shape too large to be human. It was coiled like a waiting predator, its outline barely distinguishable against the flickering light. Jonas stiffened. "We need to get out. Now." Velma held her ground. "No, we need to understand what's happening." Jonas turned to her sharply. "Understanding it won't stop it." Then, clang! The bell rang again in its own. And suddenly, the figure in the darkness moved. Two glowing, hollow eyes snapped open, staring directly at them. A massive, clawed hand emerged from the shadow, its fingers long and jagged, scraping the stone floor as it pulled itself forward. A voice deep, guttural, ancient whispered through the chamber. "Free? At last?" Shaggy screamed. Nope, definitely not staying for this." Jonas grabbed the lantern from Fred and turned to the gang. "Run!" They didn't need to be told twice. The gang bolted up the stone steps, their footsteps echoing as the creature in the shadows stirred, pulling itself free from whatever force had kept it imprisoned. As they reached the stairwell, the walls began to shake, dust and debris falling from above. "It's collapsing," Daphne shouted. Fred shoved open the iron door, leading them back into the lighthouse interior. He turned, expecting Jonas to be behind them, but Jonas had stopped at the threshold. Velma turned back. "Jonas, what are you doing?" Jonas held firm, his eyes locked on the massive black figure emerging from the chamber below. "I need to stop this." Shaggy waved frantically. "You can stop it from outside, man. Let's go." But Jonas reached for the rusted chains, pulling a lever on the wall. A massive iron gate began to lower, blocking the entrance to the underground chamber. "I was the lighthouse keeper," Jonas said, his voice unwavering. "I failed before. I won't fail again." Daphne shook her head. "No, you don't have to." The iron gate slammed shut, and just before it did, the creature lunged. A massive black claw snatched Jonas by the arm and dragged him into the darkness. The last thing they heard was his shout, and then silence. The ground rumbled one final time, then stopped. Fred stared at the sealed iron gate, his chest heaving. He locked himself in. Velma pressed a trembling hand against the cold metal door. He sacrificed himself. The lighthouse grew silent, except for the distant roar of the ocean outside. For the first time that night, the bell did not ring. Shaggy let out a shaky breath. "So, it's over, right?" Scooby whined, staring at the door. "Ruh-oh." Velma adjusted her glasses. "I don't know." Daphne's voice was barely above a whisper. "Then we need to find out." The gang turned toward the stairwell, ready to uncover the final truth behind the Stormhaven lighthouse. The gang stood frozen, staring at the massive iron gate where Jonas had vanished. The underground chamber was silent, except for the distant roar of the ocean. Shaggy hugged Scooby tightly. "So, we're done, right?" Velma shook her head. "Something still doesn't add up. If Jonas was right about the lighthouse sealing something away, why is it breaking free now?" Fred nodded. "Someone must have disturbed it." Daphne's eyes narrowed. "But who?" A sharp creak echoed from above. Fred turned toward the staircase. There's only one way to find out. They climbed the spiral steps, their breath visible in the chilling air. The lighthouse felt colder, as if the very walls were leaching heat from their bodies. Shaggy hugged himself. Who turned on the ghost AC? Scooby whimpered, his tail tucked. Raggy, this place feels wrong. At the top of the stairs, the lantern room loomed before them. The massive rotating beacon was still glowing, even though it had no power source. Velma stepped forward, eyes narrowing. There's writing on the glass, but it's backwards. Daphne traced the deep scratches. It's meant to be read from the outside. Fred's expression darkened as he read aloud. The keepers never leave. A sudden gust of wind howled through the lighthouse, rattling the windows. Shaggy jumped back. Oh no, I don't like that at all. Then, a voice came from the stairwell. You were never supposed to come here. The gang spun around. A man in a long raincoat stood in the doorway, his face gaunt, eyes hollow, hair streaked with gray. Velma stiffened. Who are you? The man took a slow step forward. Thomas Greaves. I was the lighthouse keeper before Jonas. Daphne gasped. But that was decades ago. Thomas nodded slowly. And I came back because I knew this would happen. Fred lowered the lantern. Then you know about the bell. Thomas's jaw tightened. The lighthouse was never meant to guide ships. It was built to keep something inside. But every time the bell rings, the seal weakens. Daphne's eyes widened. No one's been here for 20 years. That's why it's breaking free. Velma swallowed hard. Then how do we stop it? Thomas's face darkened. We have to ring the bell. One last time. Shaggy nearly fainted. We have to do what? Scooby yelped. Raggy, no. Velma hesitated. But won't that make it stronger? Thomas nodded grimly. For a few moments. But it also makes it vulnerable. If we time it right, we can seal it. Forever. Daphne shivered. And if we don't time it right, Thomas's face was grave. Then, we let it out completely, and there will be no stopping it. A heavy silence filled the lighthouse. Then, in the distance, a deep, guttural sound rumbled through the cliffs. The creature below was stirring again. Fred took a deep breath. Then we don't have a choice. Shaggy groaned. I always hate when we don't have a choice. The gang exchanged one last glance before following Thomas down into the darkness toward the bell, and whatever nightmare waited beyond it.
Scooby-Doo, where are you? Monsters, ghosts, and clues to pursue. Zoids and Jickeys, what will we do? Stick with the gang, we'll pull it through. Girl says teams split up and look around. Velma drops her glasses, crawling on the ground. Scooby shouts, hiding behind Shag, while the villain's running off of a suspicious back of doors.